Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. Something a little more ominous this time. We're still working on Massenet. Actually, this is going to be the last of the Massenet videos because most of my Massenet is actually upstairs. I like Massenet. I tend to keep him current, up there. And there's some stuff that I stuck down here, but boy, it's mostly up there in my regular collection, not here in the Overflow room. But there's some fun stuff here, and we're going to finish with, remember Massenet Werther? We talked about the Naxos historical reissue of the classic Manon, Valin, Georges Till, Marcel Roch recording. Well, here it is again on Arcadia, the 78s. Arcadia was produced by Nikos Velisiotis, who I knew quite well back in my days at Midem. He was a serious opera aficionado and got his hands on everything he could to reissue cheap on CD. And I have to say, believe it or not, there was a time back in the day when I was a big collector of historical opera. Yes, I was. First of all, because there were certain composers like Massenet who I really enjoyed, and I wanted to hear what I could get. There was only so much available in modern recordings. That was number one. And number two, because I had friends who were into it. They were pushing me and making me feel inferior and ignorant because I didn't have enough historical opera recordings, and because it was their contention that there are no great singers and that opera is a dying art form and that only these creaky, awful recordings where you only can hear the voices, if that, God forbid, the orchestration and the colors, and they didn't care about tiny things like that. They only cared about vocalists. So they were all opera queens, one way or another. And so, I did my best to humor them and at least acquire enough knowledge so that I could have a conversation if we went out for dinner or something, you know what I mean? Then I figured, who cares? Why am I wasting my time with this stuff? Anyway, so here we have another one, Manon, another Arcadia thing. I've got a lot of Manons here. Actually, the rest of this talk is Manons. So if you're not a Manon person, you may want to check it something else. Pick another video. What can I tell you? This is Germaine Ferraldi, André Vavant, and Javot is Mesdames Rambert et Ravery and Rosette and all these people. So it's Manon with Ellie Cohen again. Remember him? He just did that Werther we were talking about. This was recorded in 1928 and 1929. I mean, these are some of the earliest French opera recordings we have, complete operas. With the chorus and orchestra of the Opéra Comique de Paris, the sound is wretched. What do you expect? And what we expect is to have the whole thing all over again, because these are all public domain. So you had all these somewhat fly-by-night operations that were issuing this stuff. It didn't cost them anything. They just found a source, either their own 78s or someone else's 78s, and they transferred them. So we've got the same one. This is now on Malibran Music, which is, let's see, when was this issued? Does it say? Do they care? They weren't terribly, considerate when it came to documentation and source material, but it's still a famous Manon. Manon's a beautiful opera. It's lovely. It's wonderful. It was famously compared to Puccini's Manon Lescaut, which is the same story. And, Puccini gets on with it. The Massenet is a long opera. It's a big opera. And Puccini's is over in 20 minutes. I mean, the last act on the deserts of New Orleans. Obviously, they've never been to Louisiana. It's the plains outside New Orleans where Manon dies in 15 minutes. Pretty good, But this is a much fuller treatment. And here we have one of the great Manons, which is, of course, Victoria de Los Angeles. Superb in this role. I mean, the great Manon singers actually were de Los Angeles and Beverly Sills. Of course, it was amazing. And this is with Henri Leguet and Michel Dens and Jean Bortaire, or whatever. I don't know who that is. His name is Jean Bortaire, René Errant, and Jean Vrille, and Liliane Berton. Well, these are all famous singers. Of course, I don't need to even read their names. You know who they are without me even saying, don't you? So who's doing this? We've got Pierre Monteux, right? It's Pierre Monteux with the opera comique. It's in mono. It's marvelous. It's one of the great French opera recordings. We all know that. And it's coupled with Debussy's Demoiselle Élue and Berlioz's Les Nuits d'été with the Boston Symphony and Charles Munch, which is nice of them to add that to the ticket here. It really is. It's 3 CDs. It's just wonderful. And Testament. This was a keeper from the moment it was issued. And last but not least, the modern Manon with Georgiou and Alanya, the husband and wife power couple, for as long as they lasted as the husband and wife power couple. It's actually very lovely. It's got Earl Patriarco and José Van Damme and Gilles Ragon, good singers, very good singers. It's the Symphony Orchestra and Chœur de la Monnaie with Antonio Papano. And like I said, this is a big opera. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes of solid music in 5 acts. So it's one of Massenet's, of course, great operas, and it's fun to listen to. And I'm glad I have a bunch of them. I don't return to them all that often, to be quite honest with you, because I like Beverly Sills. Sorry. And Victoria de Los Angeles. But all these others I had as the souvenir of my days as a historical and otherwise opera person. But Massenet's really, really good. I mean, he's just a fine composer, and I enjoy these operas very, very much. But all the others are upstairs. So maybe we'll talk about some of them. I have talked about some of the other ones, of course. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.